Hello and welcome to my final match from the B division of the Dominion League against PicoPaco. This game was chosen as the feature game because it illustrates the impact of choosing different focal points for your deck. That point will become clearer later in the video as the decks approach their final form. At this point, I need 4 points from this match in order to top the B division. So far, we've played 4 games and the score is 2-2. Therefore, I need to win these last 2 games in order to top the B division. In this kingdom, we have villages in Walled Village and Workers Village, plus action is supplied by both of these cards. We have draw from Catacombs and Experiment. We have gain and plus buy in Workers Village, War Chest, and Improve. However, note that there is no trashing in this kingdom. There's no way to remove the coppers or estates that you start with in your deck. However, that is not a deterrent. We still want to build a deck, and we still can build a deck that can get more than 1 province a turn in a reasonable time. Finally, we have one event in March and a trait. The tireless trait is placed on the dungeon in this game. Quite a nice pile for that trait to go on. Now, we start with 4 and 3. My idea at the beginning of the game was to get to 5 as soon as possible because I want to buy a war chest. War chest looks like an excellent gainer here. Even though they prevent you from gaining catacombs, for example, you can gain experiments. If they prevent you from gaining workers' villages, you can gain walled villages. There will always be something worth gaining from that war chest, even if your opponent has the opportunity to ban you from a pile. How do we get to 5? Double silver is possible, however, with the lack of trashing, the absence of trashing, I do not want to include those stop cards in my deck so quickly. So I start with a card that looks like a silver but has a slightly different effect, the Improve. The Improve will give me the 2 coins and it will also trash itself into one of the villages so that I can draw a little bit more quickly. Silver does not allow me that luxury. Now my opponent has a similar idea, however, they open with the Vassal instead of the Improve. Slightly different card. It'll give you the 2 coins, but it has a slightly different effect. And now I pair my Improve with a dungeon. 2 reasons for the dungeon. One is the tireless trait is on the dungeon. It will always go back on top of the deck. That is a great place for a dungeon to be, I think. Especially as I move later into my deck development, I'll have villages I can draw into that top deck dungeon, play it, see deeper into the deck. Dungeon is also an excellent card for reliability because it cycles through a couple cards each time. Especially valuable in this kingdom without trashing. My opponent has a different idea. They do not start right away with the dungeon. Instead, they get the experiment. It is also something I considered, and honestly, experiment combined with the silver in the form of the vassal might be more likely to get to 5 on the first shuffle than the dungeon and the silver equivalent. However, as I explained, the dungeon for me has long-term value. I miss 5 here, I get to 4. I have a couple options here. It is going to be the experiment just because that gives me the best chance of hitting 5. I do not want to miss 5. You'll also note that we didn't open with Overlord because going into debt puts us further away from the gainer in the form of War Chest, and War Chest is just too good to not have early. Here comes my opponent's silver. Vassal flips a estate off the top of the deck and they get their war chest. We cycle back around. I play that experiment there, and I did not have to play the experiment because I already have 5 in my hand. I even draw into the next experiment here. This time I refrain from playing this one so that it can be in the deck for the next shuffle. There's a small advantage to playing that first experiment, and that is it will trigger a shuffle. There's only 4 cards in my deck. However, I think now, in retrospect, that it may have been better to keep the experiments in the deck so that I can play them when I needed some extra cash or I needed the cycling more urgently. We get the war chest, and the improve transforms itself or improves itself into a workers village for the plus buy, which we will need eventually, not right now. Over to my opponent. Here comes their experiments. They draw through. They are looking for the war chest, obviously. They don't find it, but they get up to 5, and they go for a catacombs. Now, I expected that to be a second war chest. 2 war chests is still good here. Okay, they block catacombs on the first one, you get experiments. Then you play the second one, they block experiments, you gain a village. You've just gained village and draw from the 2 war chests. Still is good. So I'm trying to get a second one as well here. Doesn't work out on this hand. Note you play the war chest first. You do not want to give your opponent information on how much money is in hand. What if they want to deny village and I have only 3 coins, something like that. So here they deny catacombs, which I think is not right still because I'm able to pick up a war chest for free there. And on 3, this is an easy choice because I have the 2 war chests now, not the experiment. Overlord time. Now is the time to build up with the overlords, which can function as catacombs. A card I was denied from just now. My opponent's vassal turns up a catacombs as an excellent draw for them. The cycling is tremendous. I deny war chest here. Now for the rest of this game, I'll tell you immediately, my choices for war chest denial may not be optimal. They were very difficult and sometimes I'll do my best to explain why I chose what though. I deny the war chest here because I think having a second one is excellent and I don't want to give my opponent an easy gain of a second war chest. If they have the money, they have the money. I can't do anything about that, but I can do something about the war chest gain. So they choose to gain a catacombs instead, and they had the money for the second war chest. Fine. We cycle around and fortunately see our overlord early. It will be played as a catacombs for maximum cycling, gets us all the way through until the end of the deck. Thank you, Dungeon, and thank you, Luck. Our war chest comes out. We get denied from catacombs once again. I use the opportunity to gain another dungeon. I want to have 1 in play every single turn from here on out. And on 5, I'm able to repay the debt by a second overlord. These overlords can be either catacombs or experiments for draw. Dead catacombs for my opponent, however, they do see their war chest, and now I change my denial option. Before I denied the war chests because they didn't have any, but now they have it. I noticed though that their deck composition is very terminal heavy, sorry. They have 2 catacombs and a vassal. Therefore, they probably want a village at this point, so I deny one of the village, the better village, I think. They gain a walled village, so my intuition was correct there. The second war chest comes out, I again deny a village. Still, they pick up a dungeon, good card to pick up. And they also start in on the overlords at this point. Village into overlord as catacombs, and we draw through until the end of the deck here and manage to set up a dungeon in play. I feel very happy about having the dungeon in play at this point. So war chest, we get denied catacombs again, no problem. I will take a workers village. They name workers village twice. No, they named catacombs then workers village. So I gained workers village on the first war chest, and then I gained an experiment on the second war chest, and I just pay back some of my debt here. The experiment is to make sure that I see those 2 war chests every single turn from here on out, because I'm in debt and I don't have that much money in the deck. I only have the 7 coppers that I started with, so really the war chest is what is going to push my deck forward, help it grow in strength and stability. Another dead catacombs for my opponent. They're only able to pay off some debt Pass it back to me. Looks a bit scary here. Is a bit scary because we don't see any of our overlords, but at least we see one war chest. That's why I bought the experiment. Still, even with both experiments played, the deck failed. Another denial of catacombs comes out for my opponent. I pick up another village and another overlord. So those are 3 overlords for me. My opponent only has the 1. For now, the overlords will serve as catacombs. Later on, they could be different things. Finally, my opponent manages to connect a village with a catacombs. At this point, war chest comes out again. I consider banning workers village, and I do. They pick up walled village instead. Out comes the second war chest. I think about walled village. I'm really not sure here. Instead, I go for the catacombs and they pick up a second dungeon instead, buying a workers village. Note that they did not buy an overlord at that point. They went for a workers village instead. I said, okay, just paying attention to what you're doing. We find all our overlords this time because they didn't show up last turn. So we will be able to draw through until the end of the deck here. We find both war chests. Our opponent keeps denying catacombs. I gain experiments instead to supplement the draw. Second war chest comes out. My opponent is deliberating, and this time they name experiment, but here is where I make my move. Now, I gain pendant, and you could also think about getting a third war chest here, but I felt like 3 was too many options for my opponent to ban for me. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe a third war chest is good, but the pendant now. The pendant is me saying I want to put more money in the deck, and this is going to be the focal point of my deck. I thought about this in the early stages of the game. Because there are 5 treasures here, copper, silver, gold, pendant, and war chest, pendant can be worth as much as 5 coin. That is as much as a platinum, and you get it for almost half the price, and here in this case I got it for free off the war chest. I noticed that I was drawing through until the end of the deck here. I just put a couple experiments in. I feel reasonably confident that I will see that pendant, and right now it is worth as much as a gold, so it's already a bit of a deal. I pay back some debt. Still am in debt, unfortunately, because I don't have money. That's what the pendant is going to fix. And we pass it back to my opponent. They've managed to connect all their pieces here now. Catacombs and villages. Here comes their dungeon as well. I assume they have both war chests. Now they have a heap of actions, so I want to cut the draw out from them. So I deny catacombs. They gain workers village. Second war chest. I deny workers village. They gain. Is it experiment for the draw? No, it's vassal. And they have 7. They go for another workers village and another vassal. So they have 3 vassals in the deck. And now you're starting to see what I meant at the beginning of the video with focal points. And we'll have a chat about it at this point. I want to build a deck that plays pendants. And pendants that are worth 5. In other words, a treasure heavy deck. That means my deck needs to have a heap of draw in it because the treasures don't draw cards. On the other hand, my opponent wants to increase their economy with vassals. Now vassal gives less money than the pendant, actually quite a bit less money than the pendant, but it is going to be a more stable deck for my opponent. In a pinch, you play a vassal as terminal, and because the deck is more action heavy, it is more likely to turn up an action, ideally a village, so that you can continue your turn. If I put vassals in this treasure heavy deck, less likely it'll hit. So let's see how the 2 ideas progress from here. I want more money and maybe a little less stability. My opponent wants a little bit less money but more stability. All right, let's progress. Fortunately, see an overlord here that will get me through until the end of the deck. Had to play that one as experiment instead of catacombs. Unfortunately, does mean I top deck a couple bad cards here, an estate and a copper, but we see all the important cards, the 2 war chests and the pendant. Now, let's see what my opponent chooses to deny. They just saw that I picked up a pendant. Will they deny pendant? No, they stick to their catacombs. I go for an experiment. The deck still isn't drawing well. I need draw. Out comes War Chest. They name Experiment this time. I could go for the second pendant at this time. It is something I'm thinking about. Instead, however, I go for a Vassal. I think that's bad. One Vassal for me is fine because I know the dungeon is on top of the deck. So if I see the Vassal in the opening hand, I could play it. And 100% chance it hits the dungeon and plays the dungeon. But I don't like the Vassal gain here in retrospect. I wasn't confident about the draw in the deck is why I didn't get a second pendant at this point and I went for the Vassal instead. His money is a little bit safer. Said, okay, let's be cool for now. Let's not add more stop cards. Here, finally, I get a Catacombs. I've been denied for the entirety of the game from picking up a Catacombs. Finally, I'm able to get one, and a silver. This is to fatten up the pendants, obviously. Alright, over to my opponent. Dungeon into dungeon, and they will be fairly stable from this point on. Both of us, actually, because of these dungeons, honestly. Dungeon is doing tremendous work for both of us. So here come their Catacombs. At this point, the only interesting part is to see what we are both able to achieve after we've played all of our actions. So I name Workers' Village on the first war chest. They gain Catacombs. I name Catacombs on the second war chest. They gain another Vassal by Workers' Village. By Workers' Village, and I'm guessing Experiment could be Vassal. It is another Vassal. So they have 5 Vassals. That's 10 coins. We'll see how it works out for them. I just have my one lonely pendant here. This isn't that great hand. There's no draw in it. So we skip past it. Find a couple Overlords. That'll get us through the whole deck here, I believe. I'm trying to avoid playing this Experiment, but as you see here, I need to play it in order to get all the way up until the end of the deck. Bit of a decision here on whether or not to play this Vassal. It doesn't mean I top deck an estate. I took that chance because I have a dungeon and play 1. And 2, I'm going to get a heap of draw here to try and offset that top decked estate. So here's War Chest, and now my opponent names Pendant. I said, okay, no Catacombs anymore. Fine, I'll gain the Catacombs now. I'm happy to gain Catacombs. Now they name Catacombs on the second War Chest. I gain a Workers' Village. I play the Vassal because I wanted 15. That is going to get me 8 gold. Now my pendants are with 5 coin, and then I have still 9 left over. This could be triple Experiment. Could be another pendant and an Experiment. Instead, I go for 2 sets of experiments. Experiment. And I'm looking at this third dungeon, and I do buy the third dungeon. This deck now, at this point, and at this juncture in the game, will live or die by a stall turn. So I'm doing my best to not have this stall turn happen. Ideally now, I want to have 2 dungeons in play at the start of every turn. Might mean you discard a good card or 2, but you're going to see a lot of your good cards more often than not. This, see what happened there? No trashing. My opponent had to play that Vassal dead and hope to the Dominion gods that there was a village on top of the deck. Unfortunately, there was. And not only was there a village on top of the deck, but they draw through all the way. Said, okay. That is why you build the Vassal deck, right? For that extra little bit of stability. I deny Catacombs because I noticed they have not drawn through their deck here. So I'm going to make an effort to deny draw. They gain the last Workers' Village. I denied Catacombs before, now I'm going to deny Experiment. And let's see how much money they come up with. They already have 10 on the table. They do something interesting there. Did you see? They gained that duchy. They've entered the endgame. I was a little bit surprised to see that. I thought it would have been another dungeon or another village. But they are thinking that I might be able to end the game and win here. There are 4 Vassals left. Experiments are easy to empty. I didn't think I was close to ending the game, but maybe I'm underestimating how much my deck can do. And they go up to 16. Now I thought with the duchy gain that would be followed by a couple provinces, but instead it's 2 sets of experiments. Maybe a province now, is it? Or is it going to be 2 5s? No, look at this trick. March to play one of the experiments so that they top deck 3 experiments. That is a cute trick. Both of us are very concerned about stability. And the rest of the money goes into points now. A duchy and an estate. I said, okay, There's a bit of a strange way to score with duchies here, but I understand you got one free from the war chest. So let's see how we respond to this now. We are fortunate. We will likely draw through the deck here. Here are the experiments. Here's another catacombs. This looks like a successful turn for us. We'll see all our pieces. Just a matter of deciding when to play this singular vassal. Misses here, unfortunately, but it's fine. I have the actions to deal with that, to supplement a dead vassal. And we get to the end of the deck. We just miss 1 copper, but that is fine. Let's see. They denied duchy for us here, so they think we want to score. I'm not so keen on scoring, actually. I go ahead, I put a second pendant, also red platinum right now, into the deck. Let's see if they deny pendant again here. If not, I really am considering another pendant. They do name pendant, so I can't gain pendant. Here I gain a workers village, not a catacombs. I'm just about out of actions here. And like I said, you live or die by a stall turn at this point in the game. So I'm making extra efforts to include just a little bit of redundancy in the deck. Extra actions won't hurt, but dead drawn catacombs will. Now, how much money do we have? A heap, 20. I said, all right, I have to keep up with the scoring. That is going to be a couple of provinces for me. And another pair of experiments just to supplement the draw. I just put 2 stop cards in it, right? 2 provinces. So we are ahead here by 5 points. And I think my opponent cannot end the game, even if they see everything in their deck. I think they don't have enough money to do it. And I can deny 1 experiment, 1 vassal gain. And to empty those 2 piles is just too much money. They only showed 16 just now. And I think they would need more than that to both empty the piles and buy a province to overtake me in points. So they see everything here. Vassal into catacombs, I believe. We'll see how far they get here. I think they triggered what looked like a scary shuffle. Yeah, 10 cards in that shuffle. But they get through most of it. They had a bunch of action cards in there as well that they probably discarded with their catacombs. So it's not as bad as I initially thought it was. They don't play the experiment even there of that vassal on that trigger the reshuffle, preserving it. And they get mostly through the deck here. Just leave 1 card on top. War chest. Now I name duchy because I know they want duchy. And I also don't want them to get the points that easily, especially in the end game. So we cordon off the duchies. Looking at improve and end game tricks. Instead they gain experiments, which is fine. And here I am going to name one of the draw cards, probably the experiments, just in case there's some sneaky pile out where they gain experiments on me here. I don't think so, but I may have missed something. They gain vassal instead. Little bit nervous now. Do they have enough to end the game 15? No, they don't. They don't. And they even spend money to clear that estate off the top of the deck by marching the vassal. They have even less money now. They can just do province and duchy. The end game is getting tense now. The end game is getting tense. And we do have to be careful and we do have to be smart about our decisions. And they do get that province and duchy. So they're back in the lead now. I have to drop a pendant here, unfortunately, but I have all these very nice draw cards thanks to the 2 dungeons. I'm not complaining. I'll find back that pendant. Pretty confident about that. Especially with all these draw cards in my hand now. Vassal here fortunately reveals an experiment. We will play that one. I'll probably need to play all the experiments. I would like to not play all the experiments, but again, I have to here to get all the treasure in my deck. So war chest again, they named duchy at this point, expected. Gain experiment to keep the draw going. Second war chest. They will probably deny experiment. Here they deny improve, which I thought was strange. Instead, I go for another catacombs. I'll have the draw. I need the draw in order to see this. And critically, all the pieces in my deck get me to 24, which is triple province. It is a play I can make here, something I thought about after buying 2 of them. But if I take another province, I'm currently, what, 8 points ahead? I'll be 14 points ahead. And if I take the third province here, I would be 14 points ahead. However, I thought that was too easy for my opponent to win. They would just need 2 provinces. They have the money to buy 2 provinces. They've shown me that before, 16 and 2 buys. And then they have a couple gains in war chest. Not only that, they have an overlord that can function as an improve, which can trash one of their villages into a duchy. So I said, look, I'm not playing that game. I think it's too easy for you to get 2 provinces and a duchy and win. So we're leaving the 3 provinces. For sure you can't get 3 provinces. I can though, if I come back another turn. So what I could do at this point is just supplement the draw, put experiments and catacombs into the deck. You have to be careful. You don't want to leave a pile out. So I kind of hedge, do something in between. I gain a duchy to increase the gap in the VP, and I gain an experiment for the draw. Alright, here's my opponent's turn. And this, see that early vassal? This is a good sign for me. And it turned up copper. Here's another one, turns up duchy. Okay, they keep going. It's kind of strange that they didn't play all the action cards before the vassal. I thought so. Because if it's on top of the deck, you would draw it anyway with the village. You only want the vassal, you want to play the vassal to search for action cards only in the instance when you absolutely need to. That's how I would play it. Maybe I have things twisted, but my opponent opted for something different, and they get punished. They get punished because this catacombs has to be drawn dead, and there's no way they could end the game with so few cards in play and in hand. Do find a war chest. I knock down the duchy, prevent them from gaining duchy. They gain another dungeon. They buy province because they have to hope at this point that I stall and they get 2 provinces, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, and I would like to credit the dungeons for making that possible for the entirety of the game. We draw through everything, we get back to our 24, and that is more than enough to pick up 2 provinces to win the game here. At this point, we are 3-2 ahead in the match, 3-2 ahead, and we went into the final game, me needing to win as second player. Things were going well. Until they didn't go well, and I bottom decked 4 of my ironmongers out of 5. I was unhappy. So final standings in front of you is that I end up with second place by half a point. And we also lost to Bitter Worm Coil, if you recall that video. However, we'll be back in season 64 with another round of B Division matches. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and hopefully next time we could get that extra point to overtake our opponent and top the B Division. See you in the next one.